poltergeist is as opposed to a ghost. The poltergeist is seen by the paranormal community not as an entity, a human soul, but just a psychic energy that's causing things to float around. I didn't clarify that one thing that you guys asked. Now that is a totally absurd notion, which I'd like to really close off on as far as it even being an option when we get the chance. So
that's kind of like just a psychic ability, or it's not. There's no spirit involved in that.
Exactly.
As far as a poltergeist, just, right? Okay.
Underlying psychological abilities that have been traumatized that for somehow are falling in place to fly and so forth and so on. It's just a ridiculous notion.
Okay.
It really is.
Now, one thing you mentioned in your book, Mark, was that certain demographics are more prone to this behavior or activity than others.
Yeah, believe it or not, the more younger, let's see, 18, 25, 65% believe. The more educated, the higher the likelihood they will believe in earthbound spirits. The more educated.
Now, what about actual, as far as like actual, say, possessions or possession and the poltergeist and that type of activity? Is that more prevalent among certain people or certain ages?
As far as like demographics and everything, I don't. That's a good question. I don't know how to answer that. All I know is that across the board, demonic activity, whether it be oppression, obsession, or possession, those are the three stages. I've seen all of them, including possession, and I've had to be involved in exorcisms myself. They all are on the rise tremendously. The thing is, the church is being very dismissive of what is an undeniable fact, and so many people are afraid to go to their pastor to ask for help because we weren't taught in seminary how to deal with real spiritual warfare, like the presence of the demonic that's actually manifesting itself and attacking people. There are women, guys, it's going to sound crazy, but there are 4 different women in the last month I've talked to who are being sexually assaulted by incubus and succubus.
Now, John, you got a good question about this.
No, we're getting into a gray area on the incubus thing. I didn't want to get too crazy. Now, when you say they're being sexually assaulted, is there evidence of it? Has there been rape kits done?
You said there's empirical evidence.
I mean,
well, in certain areas, but what I can say about this is that you can go all the way back in Babylonian ancient texts which talk about incubus and succubus. So it's something that's ensconced not just in American culture, but back in human consciousness. There's just that tends to be one of the perverse activities of demonic is that some of them will have, I guess you say, assignment to attack women in that way. One lady had what she thought was the ghost of Michael Jackson visit her. This is really serious. This is 3 months ago, and they were talking, and he was making himself known as far as movement in the house, moving things around and banging on the walls and that sort of thing, and actually stroking her skin. And
but that was she was a woman though. She was an adult woman, so I don't see the connection. Why she would think that would be Michael Jackson?
Well, and that's why I asked her. I said, well, "Why do you think it's him?" And because he said he was Michael Jackson. I said, "Oh, okay." He said he was. They can actually that's called a disembodied voice. You can actually, and I've heard voices from the demonic that sound human. And that's what happened with this case that I dealt with this past weekend. Was the woman, the first voice she heard was a disembodied voice of a little girl speaking very loudly into her ear 10 years ago.
So these are actual audible voices and not the electronic voice phenomenon that you talked about.
Yeah, that's the distinction. Electronic voice phenomenon, you do not hear it at the time, but you do pick it up on the digital recorder. but a disembodied voice is something that everybody hears, or at least some people
Some
do.
people do.
So
Right,
that's
right.
the distinction there.
Wow.
And I mean, it's pretty crazy. But this woman, she would actually feel penetration from this thing inside
Okay.
her. But the thing is, that when she went to work, it was harassing her. It was massaging her feet and her back and everything, and whispering to her and oppressing her. Because that's what happened. Is once she opened that door, when she didn't have the discernment to say this is not good, everything that glitters is not gold in the supernatural. I hope your hearers please hear that. Is it just because something is real in the supernatural doesn't mean that it's good. There is real supernatural evil, according to the Bible, that can make itself turn or morph into anything it wants to. The Bible says Satan can change into the angel of light, which is the very opposite of what the prince of darkness is. And if Satan can turn into the prince of darkness, it'd be a snap for him or his demons to turn into a little girl with curly hair, or old lady in a white dress. She's ubiquitous. Or shadow figure. A shadow figure is just simply another manifestation of the demonic. It seems to be kind of their default method of manifesting.
So the idea that
that
it's a ghost, Mark, you don't agree with that?
No, absolutely not. No, for a number of reasons, and it's tearing people apart in families, and it's an extremely dangerous doctrine to believe in. Think of cancer as being friendly and innocuous and that sort of thing, but there are all kinds of people who are being oppressed demonically because they believed that this activity in their home was caused by human spirits that were trapped. And they are not trapped human spirits. Demons, what they like to do is to deceive us by making themselves look like deceased human beings. Those demons have been here for thousands and thousands of years. They know everything about the people that were in that house, so they can mimic them to perfectly. As far as what they can do is that somebody's loved one has died, and a year or two later, they quote show up, or it seems like them, in an apparition, and they start talking to them. Then this is how deceptive they are. They're looking for anything that will get a foothold into that person's some kind of trust, and in which they can get a foothold into life. And once they do that, then they'll just build and piggyback on top of that until they get more and more permission, until the end it would be actual possession. And,
now you talked about the three stages, and infestation is when the ghost starts, or the demon starts appearing. Is that right? Or you start interacting?
Yeah, that would be entry.
Okay,
that would be the entry, infestation.
Okay, and then what's oppression?
Oppression would be where they're trying to they're trying to break you down physically, emotionally, and spiritually, trying to drive you crazy, trying to turn the family members against each other. Oftentimes, they will focus on one person more than the other, so that they say, for example, the wife sees it a whole lot more than the husband does, and so she's the one that's being flipping out, and he's just saying, "Don't worry about it, honey. You're just, you're just going nuts or whatever." So they'll use that sort of thing. That's oppression, but it can't, like I said, it can be physical, emotional, and spiritual. Till it starts having an effect on people, fraying their nerves, and it begins to deteriorate people's character. Like this little boy who I mentioned, he was exposed to this demonic activity for 10 years, and after I had prayed for him, he said, "Mommy," he said, "after Mr. Mark prayed for me," he said, "the next day I was so happy because it was the first day until like getting up and killing my brother."
Wow.
Yikes.
And
That's yeah.
the day before that, I had gone in because the man, he drives a truck, a semi, with gas on the back,
Uh-huh.
and he was going down the road just 2 weeks ago. And again, the way the demon got entry was by talking like a little girl to the lady, the mom, and the mom with the compassion said, basically gave her permission to stay. And then over a period of 10 years, all of them started to come apart and become just really irritable, angry. The marriage about to fall apart. He's going down the road, and he tells me, he says he hears this demonic growl on his radio and singing through 2 songs, and he's about to snap with anger for no reason. He's usually a very laid-back guy. So I prayed for him. We anoint his truck, clear it, cleanse it, bless it, and he says immediately the presence is gone. He feels back calm and everything, and we had to cleanse that house 3 times because I think it all depends on how strong the demonic presence is.
Now, Mark, when you're performing this, the praying, it's not really an exorcism, but did you feel anything?
You can that, really.
Yeah. Did you feel any negative spirit, or did you feel anything when you were doing it?
Yeah. Yes, at one point, for example, you can hear we felt cold spots, but sometimes with demonic as well, you can feel heat spots. And some of my listeners, again, I know they know what I'm talking about. The houses, there's cold spots, inexplicable cold spots. You walk and sometimes they'll follow you around. But while I was cleansing, but you could call it exorcism of the house too. It's basically the expelling of the demonic out of the house. So there were all kinds of things that were manifesting itself. While I was expelling it, there were cold and hot breezes were being shot down out of different areas that we were cleansing at the time. And at the very end, there was a shadow. I asked for a sign that it was leaving and capitulating, it was surrendering. And there showed up a shadow figure, which just looks like a shadow that's walking. It's weird, but it's very calm. And
now, did everybody see this?
They walk in the front door.
Who actually saw it? Who actually saw it?
Let's see. It was. I actually didn't see it because I had my eyes closed. It was a family.
And each individual actually said they saw it.
As far as I know, I know that, and that's happened on more than one occasion.
Amazing. We have a question from one of our listeners, Mark. Rick wants to know, what is syncretism?
Well, that's what I just spoke on last week on the show. Syncretism is when you mix two different beliefs that don't really go together. Like it would be Christianity and witchcraft. We had somebody on the show the other day, 2 weeks ago, a paranormal Christian, which I'm opposed to. She was a devout Christian, but she also kind of slipped a little bit, and she got into witchcraft.
Wow.
So she started blending witchcraft with Christianity.
That seems counterintuitive.
That's an extreme form of syncretism. Huh?
Well, it seems kind of a bit counterintuitive. But Mark, now that's kind of how I kind of look at Catholicism. Catholicism, in my opinion, I was actually baptized Catholic, and Catholicism just is like an overlay of Christianity on top of like old paganism, and they have the saints instead of the individual gods who are in charge of every little thing. That's kind of my thought on it. Now I think recently the Pope sanctioned I think a new, or the only one, I'm not sure because I didn't really read the article, a new exorcist. And just I don't know if you get like a franchise with that or whatever, but do you know the story I'm talking about? Are you aware of that?
Oh, I know that they are tending to what every other at least church body that is in touch with pop culture is aware of is that the activity, demonic activity, is increasing, which means that possession is. So he I believe has increased the number of official I guess you could say sanctioned exorcists. Yeah, that's the word. Yeah, sanctioned exorcists.
Right, but okay. Right. My